Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the LaCicala kitchen. I'm Patty. For those of you who know me, some of you may not. Today we are going to be showing you how to make a very versatile dough, and I'm going to show you two ways to use it. This is my basic cinnamon roll dough, but today I'm going to use part of it to make a loaf of cinnamon roll bread, and the other half is going to be pesto rolls, which is going to be for our dinner tonight. I'm making chicken franchise. So this is actually a half recipe. When I make a full recipe, it makes a lot of cinnamon rolls, which I usually make ahead and freeze. But today I'm making a half recipe, so I get one loaf of bread and a pan of pesto rolls. Listen to me. So I can show you how that works. And along the way, maybe I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've been getting some questions in my DMs from people who don't know me. I have a lot of my former clients and customers who already know all about me. So I am a former private chef and caterer. I have 6 children, 5 boys, 1 girl who I'm exceptionally proud of. They're all phenomenal and amazing. I have 2 wonderful stepsons. I have 4 grandchildren and 1 on the way. My second oldest son has 3 beautiful children, the most amazing you have ever met in your life. Not offending anyone else, but they just are. And my second oldest stepson has the most beautiful little girl, and we're now waiting the birth of a little boy. So we are super happy about that. So I have a interesting and varied background. I am a breast cancer survivor, also uterine and cervical cancer. I am a heart attack survivor, and I deal with long COVID every day. So if you want to hear a little bit more about me, continue to watch through the directions here. Those of you guys on TikTok, you're going to have to go to Instagram or YouTube, because these directions, the video will just end up being too long. TikTok's going to cut me off. So what I have here, let me start you off. 2 cups of milk, half a cup of oil, half a cup of sugar. I'm going to heat this just till the sugar dissolves. I don't want it to boil. Let it get to like under boiling. I just want the sugar to dissolve. It should get pretty hot. I'm going to put it in my stand mixer and let it cool down till it's around 105, 110 degrees before I add my yeast. I don't want to kill the yeast. So I'll be back when it's time to add the yeast and some of the rest of the ingredients. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. Ready to go. Okay, so this has cooled down enough that I can add my yeast. So again, those who know me know I buy yeast in bulk. So this yeast spoon is the equivalent of 1 packet of yeast. I'm going to add that, sprinkle it right on top. Okay, I'm going to give it a quick whir to mix it up. And then I'm adding 4 cups of flour. And that's it for now. Let me cover this. I'm going to cover this Okay, so that's like creamy looking. Just so you don't think it's not looking right. It's a very loose, this is not a dough that needs kneading. It's very creamy looking. We're just going to cover this right now. I'm going to throw a towel over it. And this is going to sit for 1 hour. And then we'll be back, and I'm going to add another ½ cup of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and a ½ teaspoon each of baking powder and baking soda. A neighbor, when I lived up in the Hudson Valley in New York, many years ago. My heart is still there. It's one of my favorite places on earth. It's so beautiful. Gave me this recipe. I've made my own little tweaks to it over time, but I've been using this recipe for years and years and years. And again, I've changed it up. She gave it to me as a cinnamon roll recipe, and now I make breads out of it. I make rolls out of it. So that's what we're gonna do. So this is gonna sit for an hour. I said I was gonna tell you a little bit more about myself. I have 6 children. When my 3 oldest were young, my second oldest was a child actor. We traveled all over the world. I'm not going to impede on his privacy and tell you any more about him, but yes, you would know who he was. We did a lot. As I said, we traveled the world. And then when we came back and settled down, we lived in the Hudson Valley, and I developed breast cancer. And when I got through that, I got myself into a gym for the first time in my life. I was in my 40s, and I became very dedicated to it because I had to get my health back. And I started cooking for my clients, and that's also where I had my first heart attack. Somehow I became the poster girl for both the Cancer Society and the American Heart Association. Never asked for that. But anyway, over time I had a pacemaker implanted, and my cooking went up to a new level. We moved to North Carolina eventually, and I started cooking for people down here. I did a lot of fundraisers. We lived in Chapel Hill, and I did a lot for Duke and UNC and Ronald McDonald House, and I would do care packages for the students at UNC. Moms and dads would call me if their child was sick and say, please, bring them some chicken soup and cookies, which we did. I called it my Mom's Love Program. I did a weekly Patty's Soup Train, which was a huge pot of soup, a loaf of bread, and a dessert that families would pick up weekly. And there we go. Come back when this is done raising in an hour, and I'll tell you the next chapter. Okay, it's been an hour, and it's risen, it's puffy. Here we go. Should have taken that off probably, but I wanted to show you. There we go. I'm adding a half a cup of flour, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and a half a teaspoon each of baking powder and baking soda. We're going to mix this up, and then I'm going to cover it and put it in the fridge for a couple of hours. This dough is pretty soft, and it's much easier to work with after it's been refrigerated for a few hours or even overnight. So into the fridge it goes. Let me tell you about the next chapter in my life. Caught up there. Okay, I'm going to put that in a bowl and stick it in the fridge. So, unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, my marriage in North Carolina did not work out. So I went back to New York with my youngest son. The older ones were all grown and gone, and we settled in. And I started cooking for people up there, catering. And if you go to Facebook, you'll find my LaCicala Facebook page, and you will be able to see some, not all, of our catering work up there. I met my now husband up there. I started teaching for a while at a juvenile maximum security facility for girls. There was a program to teach girls how to have a job out in the real world when they got out. And it was hard, and it was rewarding, and it was one of my favorite things I've ever done. And those girls were so into it. And then my son went to Spain with some of his friends. and came back with a migraine. 3 weeks later, I was in the hospital with the worst case of pneumonia, a massive infection raging through my body, and what they believed was probably the first case of COVID in New York or possibly the East Coast. Nobody knew what COVID was at the time. They didn't even test for it. They figured this out later. I've got all kinds of damage and been suffering from long COVID for years. So, not a political channel, but I'm a huge advocate. Get your vaccinations. I've got a pacemaker on one side and a port on the other side to put the potassium back into my body that I lose every day with all the issues that this has caused me. So now I am back in North Carolina. My husband is a director at a local hospital, and my kids said, "Mom, you have to get on the internet and show people how you cook." Here I am. So we're gonna put this in the fridge. I'll be back in a couple of hours and we'll be ready to rock and roll. See you then. And I might tell you just a little bit more, maybe something about my childhood. Okay, I just wanted you to see how soft this dough is. Okay, you can see it's, there we go, very soft and fluffy. I greased this bowl. I'm just turning it to cover the dough. I'm going to cover it, put it in the fridge, and it'll sit there for a couple of hours. It'll be much easier to roll out and work with. Another thing I don't know if I mentioned was when I was in the gym, I got very highly certified as a trainer. And I started training bodybuilders and fitness models. And to inspire my clients, I did it myself. I competed. And at almost 50 years old, I've had 26 first place trophies. Maybe one of these days I'll get brave enough to post a picture from that chapter of my life, but not right now. So I'll see you in a couple of hours. Alrighty, so the dough is cold, it's divided in half. I rolled one half out into a rectangle, and I have 1 stick of butter softened with a half a cup of white and a half a cup of brown sugar and a sprinkling of ginger in there, which I like. I think it gives it a nice little bite. I'm just going to spread this on there. You can use your hands if you want. I'm using an offset spreader. I think one thing I didn't tell you about me before is that when I was growing up, I spent all my summers in Italy. My mom was born there. My dad was born here. His parents were actually born there, but he was born here. And he went into the army and was stationed in Italy. And that's where he met my mom. And they got married and he brought her back. So my dad is Sicilian and my mom is from northern Italy. So I grew up with nonnas from both sides, the best of both worlds. I learned about the North and the South. My maternal grandfather was actually an extremely famous soccer player, and if you know anything about soccer in Italy, it's a pretty big deal. He was like LeBron James is now. At his time, I would walk down the street with him and people would stop to talk to us. I remember that growing up. And my grandmother was the funniest, flakiest, yet strongest, wisest person. My 2 grandmothers were like my best friends. They were awesome. Anyway, so there we go. Now I have cinnamon, and I'm just gonna sprinkle this with cinnamon. Now you can use as much as or as little as you want. You can see I'm not measuring this. Just sprinkle it on there. Okay, now comes the fun part. We roll. Now roll it pretty tight, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. There Okay, now I'm gonna chop off these two ends that have nothing in them. Here we go. Turn it towards me. I'm using a pizza cutter to give myself a line. You can use a knife and just cut right through the middle of that. Just like that. Split it open. Just turn them on their sides as it's facing you. Now you're going to pick them up and twist one over the other. Look how easy that is and what a beautiful bread this is going to make. That little piece got cut. Okay, tuck the end under, tuck this end. Now, lined with parchment paper and sprayed, I'm going to pick this up and put it right in the pan. And I'm going to let these rise for probably 20 minutes, half hour. I'll be back in a minute when I have the other half rolled out for our pesto rolls. Okay, I have the other half rolled out. You can see I've had it spread with pesto. Any pesto you choose. You can use sun-dried tomato pesto. I'm using a pesto genovese, which is just a plain basil pesto. These are some ground up walnuts. It's my little mini chopper. I just ground some walnuts. I'm going to sprinkle them on here. Not a lot. Just a few. The rest are going to be saved for a cookie baking adventure. And be sure to tune in tomorrow. We are starting some Halloween cookies, which the kiddies love. My daughter-in-law is already texting me about her favorite witch's finger cookies. Okay, Parmesan cheese. Now, if I had remembered to thaw out my mozzarella cheese, I'd be putting some mozzarella in here, but I forgot. So I'm going to shred a little bit of Parm, fresh Parmigiano Reggiano, right on top. And I just took my mozzarella out of the freezer and left it out to thaw out. It was stupid of me. I thought I had some in the fridge. We go through so much cheese around here. Definitely in the Italian blood. Okay, that should be good. All right, now we're gonna roll again, just like we did before. Bring it to you. Again, I'm chopping off the useless ends. This is a personal preference. Okay. I have a baking pan. And I'm going to cut. I want nice big fat ones, so I'm gonna cut these in 6. I could probably made 8 out of them, but we're gonna do 6. I'm gonna flatten it out a little bit. Go. And this is going to rise with the bread for about a half hour. The oven is preheating at 375. They're both going to go in for about 20 minutes, and we'll bring you back when everything's done. See you soon. Is this gorgeous? Look at this. Okay. This bread needs to be allowed to cool in the pan because a lot of that butter has melted out and If you try to take it out now, it's going to be a gooey mess. So let it cool a bit in the pan before you attempt to take it out. Now I have some melted butter here. I'm going to brush the top of these rolls. Give them just a quick brush with some melted butter. Oh my God, you should smell this kitchen right now. And I'm standing right over these pesto rolls. The smell is amazing. Okay. And I'm going to give them another quick sprinkle of grated Parmesan. Look at that. That's going to go with my chicken franchise tonight. Now, I whipped up a simple confectioner's sugar glaze for the bread. I have a pantry full of flavorings. You can flavor with whatever you want. I used a little milk, a little melted butter, a drop of hot coffee, and some maple flavoring. You can use anything. Vanilla, just hot water, and confectioner's sugar. And I'm just going to give it a drizzle so it gets nicely glazed while it's hot. Let it run into those layers. As I said, this bread is going to cool before I attempt to take it out. I'll be sure to put a picture of the finished on the plate product here. But look at that. Your family, your friends, they will think you're a rock star. Trust me on this one. These rolls, amazing. And this is all from a basic cinnamon roll dough. You can do this with orange marmalade. You can do this with cinnamon roll filling. You can do this with anything you want. You can make a bread. You can make rolls. I'm trying to show you that one basic dough gives you some versatility. Now come back and join us again. We are doing a Halloween cookie tomorrow. And this week we will be doing another one of our fall winter soup series. We will be doing another one of our holiday cookie series. We've got a lot of fun things coming up. Buon cibo, buon amici. That means good food, good friends. Recipes are meant to be shared. They're meant to be taught. That's how we pass our traditions down. Come and join us again. See you soon.